How can I say? It is so beautiful to think music is a suite of variations, as if, like every other day, is a variation of the preceding, while not the same, of course. Thematically, yes, but also in a sound painting of the moods. Of course, we have to survive for the next day, without which we won't see it. But what animates us is to do something out of the day, not only proactively or as hopefully also for the others, to feel like there is a purpose to why we are here, even if we don't get it, philosophically speaking, but realistically, there is a self-giving. There is a receiving too. Sometimes it's not balanced, far from there, but regardless, I'm not here about any moralization or any philosophizing. I'm here simply about sharing, and somebody is sharing the sky with us. Sorry for this airplane, I didn't count on it. In the morning calm of the garden, where the birds are the musicians, the creator is the conductor, and we, the humans, are the ones to animate um, what part of it we are and part of it we do. And I think a lot about music in this analogy of nature, the tempo of nature, of the celestial movements, the tempo of the seasons, when they are and how they are, and sometimes they seem to be out of what they used to be, as if there was a clock that has to be always perfect. Everything is in motion. We are responsible, we are irresponsible, we are aware, we are unaware. I find that to be the beautiful analogy about theme and variations in music with life's daily variations on the next and from the preceding. Every morning like now, I feel like it's a clean slate to do better, to do right, to do further, to do higher, to do the best of one's own abilities, to help either the others, either one's own goals, in order to reach the others through one's deeds or one's making. Um, there's so many variations in the ways we interact with each other, but in the depth of it, not just interacting with the ways we confront, explain, compete, expect, jealousy, desire. That's part of it. And I find in music that too. I find music more and more to be the real expression of life. Somehow, when it's civilized in a contrapoint that is organized, it's a way of idealizing societal expressions and commitments. In the other way, music is liberating because it unleashes the energy of our forces for righteousness, for tenderness, for happiness, all these basic human nature's essential being um, necessities. We all feel them differently. Of course, you can add cultures to that, languages to that, probably history to that, and how people are shaped by all these preceding generations. In a way, we have to get liberated at some point from the inheritance of the ancient competitions or confrontations Not that we have to ignore history, far from there, like how we study again the analogy in music, the old music as if it's today, but historically we could be also nicer and not naively so, but truly so. Just be open, smile with your heart, meaning not just with your face, open to the others. Of course, you cannot be open to the others when they disagree to the point to which they discourage you by giving you the impression that, in fact, in their eyes, you're not worth either what you do, either what you should be, or what you think you are. There are people like this. They are needed in a way because that's what motivates their being, is to define the others negatively in order to define themselves positively. It's all very easy to say, but very difficult to do. Mademoiselle Boulanger used to say to me that as a teacher I should be very tolerant and constantly encouraging, while as a personal endeavor on my own I should be forgiveless. I don't know if that word exists, but I should be tolerant with the others, intolerant with myself. Um, it is quasi unlivable, to be honest, in the daily life, but I find it to be very tempting to try. Sometimes I find I fail. Truth be said, who knows how to react best to everything? We're just attempting here and there to do the right thing. And everybody is animated with some ambition, and that is so healthy. When I see musicians who come with talent and with perfect pitch, what do I say to myself? Oh, they don't need me. They only need their intuition, and they'll find it out anyway how things are done. But that's true, and that's wrong. They will always need something from my input, either my experience, which I doubt is necessary to them, but it's more about listening to who they are individually. It's hard for me to teach in group because I have to, and I do, my best to listen psychologically to them in terms of their projection in their art or in their form of creativity. And what do they pursue? And when they come to me for an advice or a help or a lesson, I don't know if they even know what exactly they want from me. And I really don't know what they want from me either. But what I can say is that I do not hierarchize the people by some kind of, in music I mean, by some kind of elitism. I only teach the most gifted, or the most gifted deserve the most to be taught. That's not true. That's really not true. I think, who are we to define who is more gifted or who is more deserving? Too many, too many leaves in my deck. But anyway, the point of what I wanted to tell you is that I believe that the element essentially of their involvement in music, their courage, touches me a lot. I know it sounds very silly to say, oh, but they're doing anyway what they like. They're already privileged. Perhaps they're spoiled compared to people who have to work to survive because they have some kind of means of help to study. Yes, but at the same time, um, I still think that since I teach piano to pianists, well, I teach technically music to pianists. I teach aesthetics and theory a little bit, but not much, not too much. I try to find the balance. I guess their intuitions, I guess their hearing. I'm attuned rather than guess. I'm attuned to their yearnings in music. And I know that it doesn't come at once. It comes all in response to one's endeavor and one's ambition perhaps to please. Perhaps they please somebody or themselves, but ultimately there is a feeling that they are called to do something with that art that many did with it anyway, and very beautifully. So the question comes down to, what can I teach them? In fact, I don't know. I only can listen to them and see, oh my God, this little weakness we can figure out with this fingering. Or perhaps the pedal is not necessary after all. Depends of the acoustic and the instrument. And how do you follow up the voices? And how do you immerse yourself in the texture of the works that you serve? Not by finger memory only. I mean, all these are easy words, I agree. It's really easy to tell all these sort of things to a student, but to follow up on their progress weekly is humbling. Of course, the fact that some can progress faster than others is not a competition among them. In general, I don't understand how people can consider music as part of a competition, but it is life, after all, that is a competition to survive, to strive, to succeed, whatever that definition is. Of course, financially or perhaps in power over others, hierarchy in development. I have never been taught or educated, or in my parents' way of teaching me how to be polite and a good person, at least attempt. It's not a given, far from there. Um, I was never a warrior, never a competitor. But I understand that it's a very intense, motivic thing that brings a lot of students to go to competitions and to get disappointed by the fact that they didn't get chosen to be among the elite, as if the few chosen ones matter and all the others don't. But in fact, everybody, naturally, I know it sounds cheesy and naive, has a deep root in music to bring their own contribution. I believe it, I really do. I know, it shouldn't be said because it sounds like I reached almost 60 and I'm still naive, didn't get it, didn't understand that the point of it is fight and walk over each other and mischaracterize the other, you know. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how it's supposed to be done. I know I'll be the best for this and that, and they'll come to me because I'm the guru who knows, and I have the tradition that is better than theirs, and I studied such and such, and I succeeded such and such. I. I think it's silly in the eyes of students. The only eye that matters is themselves, not us. They don't have to please our egos. We're here to exchange. And of course, we can misunderstand. We can misguess. But if we are intuitively attuned, as I try to be, we try to find the most we can what is the right expectation of us from each of them. Of course, at the basis, do I play correctly? The score, the notes, the rhythm, the pitches, the indication, the style, the atmosphere, the aesthetics. How to play the trill, which note I start from, how do I play what is not indicated, where do I breathe but I don't need because my instrument doesn't necessitate it, how do I organize myself to sound like I am a musician rather than a pianist, in the sense organizing my musical structure like an architect, like a constructor. In other words, going with my intuition musically because my ear guides me for the emotional intensity of the tension release of the harmonic language of tonal system for most of what I play, if I do, and in beyond differently too. But how do I respond to what others responded in the same score? How did they read it and understand it, misunderstand it, or perhaps I misunderstand it? And how will people after me look at the score on which people before me looked at the score for the answers. After all, most of the time it's all we have between the dead composers and us. Now we have recordings and more teachers and more musicologists, and that's good. Does it answer the questions of the performers other than the teacher? Doubt that. I think, and I try to bring them a little bit of both. Think by themselves, develop by themselves, free themselves, and discipline themselves. It's not incompatible. It sounds like it is, but of course it's not. I just find that every student success is a challenge for me. And success is so many things. Success is, of course, recognition, achieve to make a recording that represents the best of what they can play, perform, express, which genre, which style, specifically which country of music making, Spanish, Russian, French, or the German that is considered universal, but nevertheless they do all have a connection to their own literature, to their own mythology, to their own expression of a group as a human group psyche, especially in Spanish music or music in Russia, because they're intimately connected to the folklore of their country compared to more elaborate intellectually so music from composers who are distant from their roots in terms of the folkloric roots. Or Dvorak, Tchaikovsky, they all adopt Villa-Lobos, those kind of national Bachs of countries that don't have that long of a tradition of classical music. They express the common voice of their country through the voices of the oral traditions. Bartok took them on dictation in the Balkans before they disappeared, as many of the traditions disappear in the globalization already and did disappear. So some ethnomusicology is necessary, like Bartok did then and some others do. Then you make some fusion with something else. I don't know how much that is an active fact. I think it happens intuitively in some people who are more or less aware of where they come from in terms of the earth and its culture and how they belong to that area of the world. I mean, we all born accidentally somewhere, but it becomes our roots and our belief, and then it can become more than that, and so sadly sometimes can create a sense of intolerance for the others, and it does. That's why all the wars exist, alas. Perhaps it's in human nature, I guess, to want to own the others. But I don't believe that is all that what it is, and hopefully. I'll probably die naive, but that's okay. I accept my weaknesses, intellectually or psychologically or sociologically. I'm not pretending to be a philosopher to understand and organize and prioritize. While, the truth be said, I find it fascinating to respond to the vague expectations of humanity from my students who come from all over the world to study a piece that neither I, neither them are connected to in any way. So in a way we translate, we transmit, we transform, we filter, and we try to find some kind of level of truth, whatever that is, and not uniquely on only one kind of truth. Yeah. Perhaps it's the authenticity through the score. Perhaps it's the authenticity through the interpretation because of the tradition. Perhaps the interpretation becomes the language itself of the piece over the piece. It's almost like narrating a narration in another language to describe it, while you should just state it. And in a way, if you state it, you don't have to define it or exaggeratedly re-express it. Oh, he meant this crescendo, I have to do it. He meant this minor mode, I have to show how tragic it is. But it is for what it is, and modulation already colorizes the mood of the atmosphere and the piece. And if we take it at that level, nuclear level, then we don't need any input on top of it, as if we recite a poem without expression, or we don't dub a film where we try to be the expression of the actor's mood in the dialogues for another language, but we remain purposely neutral to allow the actor's voice to be, even in the foreign language, expressing in their breath, in their act, in their physicality, the expression of the character they're representing. So at all levels, translations can be, well, can be lost in translation, but you can also find through translation a path to get to the truth of the expression, and not just some artificial elucubration of situations where you study, you learn, you compare, you have this edition, this recording, that recording, this video, that video, this teacher tradition, that teacher tradition, the tempo of this, the tempo of that. At the end of it, it's easy to get lost, to be honest, for them. Too much information is as bad as not enough, because they have to search inside themselves. What does it mean to me? How can I enter in the tradition of the people who played this piece, not be an intruder, be legitimate, because I can technically play it, finally, after practicing it, but do I really mean it? Can I mean it in a way that it corresponds to some kind of an appropriation of the piece's narrative with mine? And that's why I think that teaching is way more than just learning how to play rightfully, responsibly, and reliably, especially in public with nervousness or pianos that are never the same twice, which is a big challenge for the technique to manage to control to the much as possible. It's also to, through all this technique, to express art, and art is artificial way of redescribing life. Um, um, and I find that most of the art forms are redescription of life, of humanity, of desire for rising higher than our mishaps. Yes, I definitely try with humor, and not always understood, with a lot of analogies, not always got to reach their their point, since they fuse in my head constantly. I always think in analogies, to try to teach in students all of that at the same time. Perhaps it's too much. Perhaps it's confusing. Perhaps it's too many levels at the same time, and they cannot absorb all of it. I have to be careful to dosage it and progressively dispense it until we reach the point where they can appropriate it for themselves. And that's probably something to do with patience, as well as with perseverance. To encourage, to criticize, to be tolerant and intolerant with certain things and tolerant for other things, because you see how little by little they build their own path. In fact, with the privilege of age, which is an unfortunate fact, I wish I didn't have it, because it was fun when I was young, to be young, but that's the case for most of us. At the season of life where I've been through more than I am, or perhaps will be, I find that the students, being just like children, or our children or other children, the generation that has everything in front of them, we want to make sure they're not locked down by their past. And I try to lighten them up from these traditions that can make them heavy to advance, either in their creative musicality, if they compose, improvise, orchestrate, transcribe, transpose, whatever, or those who want to strictly play what is written at its most honest, at its most earnest, And that's the most important, because then it shines on their audience that they're trying to do something beautiful, meaningful. It fulfills the soulful experience of humanity. They're not priests, they are not, they're just craftsmen slash artists. I don't know in which direction more or less the balance falls, but a bit of both. I'll try every day again, like a variation on the preceding.